Come in, Southern California. This is Radio Free Los Angeles. Do you copy? Repeat, do you copy?
Now transmitting from behind the Iron Curtain in the People's Republic of California, we bring you the voice of free men, free markets, and limited constitutional government. Welcome to citizen-sponsored Radio Free Los Angeles with President of the California Taxpayers Union, Mike Alexander, and editor of the Taxpayer Gazette, Jonathan Wilson.
All right, we are live. Mike Alexander, Josh Jacobs, and Jonathan Wilson. I guess he's trying to get us up on YouTube or whatever you call this thing here. Facebook
Live.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Facebook Live. Radio Free Los Angeles coming to you again.
It's probably the same company, right?
Here.
It
I'm
is.
Here.
You're there. All right, welcome back. Jonathan was out on other ventures or adventures last Sunday night. If you'd like to be part of the show tonight, we got a good show ready for you. You call us at 866-870-5752. And if you'd like to join the growing family of Radio Free Los Angeles, Jonathan, where do they go to sign up?
It's so easy. Go to schoolchoice2020.org and subscribe to our list, and maybe even sign up for a monthly contribution while you're there.
Yes.
$5 a month really helps.
It does in more ways than you can possibly imagine, and I'll go into those reasons. Now, speaking of School Choice 2020, we are definitely on the move. Our goal is to put school choice on the California statewide ballot and initiative on the ballot for November 2020. Now, we are making steady progress in that direction, and we have a very important event coming up a week from today, and that is our drafting convention. There we have invited a number of interested parties to make formal presentations about various aspects of the bill. Now, if you want to know where the bill is, Jonathan Wilson, who is managing the website right now, has put it up there. Where do you find our draft bill?
Well, right now we have Senator Morlock's bill up on
Yes.
the website, and that's under resources, and it's right up there at the top if you go to resources. But we will be posting the latest draft tomorrow.
Yes.
Yeah.
And in addition to that, we have a series of questions and answers that go into various details. So you don't have to just read the bill, try to guess what it's all about. If you don't do well reading statutory language, or you'd like something a little briefer and more colloquial, well, go to the Q&A there. It's at the same tab. Resources, is that correct?
Frequently asked questions, FAQs. Yes, it's right there on the main page.
Great, and that's going to tell you. Now, there are many different views and perspectives. We've got some folks
I tell you,
coming
this
in.
thing is moving fast.
Yeah.
You know, every day we're getting emails from folks, hey, we want this in the bill. We want to make sure this is taken care of.
And if you're one of those people want to be heard on this issue, whether you're a homeschooler of some kind, and there are many different camps within the homeschooling community, be sure to call, write, or make a submission so that you can make a presentation next Sunday.
Yeah, I tell you what, the homeschool portion of the bill is really getting strengthened. We've had a lot of great feedback and input and suggestions, so the homeschoolers are going to be taken care of.
Right. Remember, this is your bill.
Yeah.
This is one that we're putting forward on behalf of families, individuals, and for generations to come. Whatever we get done or don't get done is going to be in place for a long time. These things are very difficult to change once they're put in there. But that's the good news. If we get school choice, we're going to have it for the long term. It will be under unrelenting attack, I can assure you, but we will have it. We're going to have a lot more in school choice here later on in the show. We also, of course, are going to be discussing Measure EE. Now, Measure EE is the parcel tax proposal that will apply to property owners within the Los Angeles Unified School District, which includes the entire city of Los Angeles, that includes the San Fernando Valley, also other cities in the area like Huntington Park, Southgate, I think Maywood, and a number of other schools in the area. I don't know about other cities that are not members, but it's going to apply to all of those schools, all the buildings and structures there. We're going to talk about the impact of that.
What do you hear on that? Do you think it's going to pass, or what's the latest? Josh, have you taken any polls?
Well, I haven't seen any polls, but it looks like the LAUSD is getting desperate because we got several headlines we're going to be going through tonight.
Yes.
Regards to senior citizens being told to give their Social Security numbers out so that way they can get the so-called exemption from this tax. Also, there have been a lot of editorials against it, especially by the Los Angeles Daily News. They've been talking about the how it's going to hurt the poor, working class, middle class families. And think about a lot of our children are from that bracket, and so they're going to be affected in a negative way should this proposition, this measure pass. I mean, EE should stand for extreme error because that's what it is.
Yes.
And so also former Councilman Dennis Zine also just wrote an editorial this past week as well that we're going to be getting into it. So whether it's ahead or behind, just make sure to get out and vote. Tell your friends to vote no on it on June 4th. Don't take anything for granted. I mean, act as if you're 10 points behind, as the old saying goes.
That's right.
Be aggressive.
Yes. And if you are a tax warrior, let me tell you, each one of your votes out there is worth 2. And here's what I mean by that. It takes 2/3 of the voters voting, not 2/3 of the electorate, but 2/3 of the voters voting to pass this parcel tax. Unfortunately, it doesn't require 2/3 of the homeowners and building owners to go to the polls, but of those who do go and who do vote, it takes 2/3 of them to pass this new measure, and it is awful. It's going to raise taxes by anywhere from $300 to $500 million, and that is their estimate. Now, what that means is that if you go to the polls, it's going to take 2 people to beat you. Right now, the forecast is that there's going to be a low turnout for an election at an unexpected time because, to my knowledge, there is nothing else on most of those city ballots at that time. So it is a stealth proposal that is being put on a stealth ballot at the first week in June, and that's going to be on Tuesday, June 4th, I believe it is.
That is correct.
Which is only a week from this Tuesday. So 7, 8, 9, 10 short days from now, that's going to the polls. You need to get out there, and you need to call your friends and your relatives, take your wife, take your husband, take your adult children. If they're not registered, get them registered, and vote no on EE as a $300 to $500 million boondoggle that just doesn't work. So we're going to talk more about that later, and the continuing war on charter schools that is being undertaken by no less a persona than Jackie Goldberg. Man, did we ever get rid of him?
She's a retread. I mean, because she was on the LA school board back in the 1980s.
Oh, yeah.
She had horrible ideas back then. She's like Jerry Brown kind of repeated
That's
at the
right.
local level. Jerry Brown was a terrible governor back in the 70s and early 80s. Terrible governor back just recently.
That's right. And we've got this woman. She's rotated in and out of every job in the state of California. She needs to retire. Later, probably in the second half hour tonight, we're going to play the second half of my interview with John Kopal that I did about a week and a half ago. John Kopal, as you know, is the president of the California the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association here in California, which was created to defend Proposition 13 and to help represent taxpayers in all kinds of ways, particularly the property taxes. John Kopal, of course, vigorously opposes Measure EE and the suit. Then we will also hear at the end of the show shortly before 9:30, we will have our favorite feature, the Government Grifter of the Week Award, and our usual indefatigable researcher, Juan Tierra, will call in with his nominees for the week. Now, before we get started, there's something else that is extremely important that I would like to take up with all of you out there, and that is Senate Bill 360, which just passed the California State Senate last week. It is not yet law. It is headed to the Assembly. Now, California Senate Bill 360 is a direct attack on what we have come to know as the clergyman penitent privilege, or Catholics would know it as preserving the seal of the confessional. And this would require, in application, it's broader than that, but in application, it would require henceforth that any priest or spiritual counselor who learns of the commission of a crime against a child or another kind of victim would become a mandated reporter. So in other words, if you're a priest or a sister or an employee of a religious organization, and here the principal target, of course, is the Catholic Church, if you are a priest, somebody in authority, an employee of one of the dioceses or a parish or something like that, and you have any conversation with the priest that may relate to that topic, then the priest is going to be mandated to report it, number one. And number two, if he doesn't report it, but someone figures out that he knows about it, he's going to have to speak about it. In fact, he may even, not even knowing about it, not having been told anything about it, he may be the first person that they question on grounds that there is no privilege against answering any such questions. Do you see what I mean? Mm-hmm. All right, so that's a very big issue. Now, needless to say, it's being vigorously opposed by the Catholic Church, but I would like to know what all of you think about it out there, because this seems to be directed, number one, at one particular church. And by the way, most of you out there know by this time that I'm Catholic, and no common sense believing Catholic has any patience or toleration for anything that has gone on. But by the way, I don't tolerate it when it takes place in a public school. I don't tolerate it when it takes place in the foster home system. I don't tolerate it when it takes place in a private school or in a private home or any place else. So please don't call in and start lecturing me about that as if I was here to defend that business. But I am here to defend something else, and that is a long-standing exception to the evidence code, which permits a priest and a preacher and a rabbi and other spiritual advisors to claim the privilege and not become a mandated reporter for the state, to become an agent of the state. Now, this is particularly problematical because priests have a special obligation, and they must defend the seal, the confidentiality of the confessional, even to death if necessary. So what we're going to see is a lot of priests being asked questions, and then they're going to be taken to jail, presumably prosecuted, and then we're going to have a lot of priests spending a lot of time in jail because they took an oath of secrecy that they can't violate.
I just don't see the Catholic Church lying down and taking this without
a fight. They're not.
They're gonna sue in court, and they are probably going to win it at the Supreme Court because this is, to me, sounds very unconstitutional.
Well,
a complete violation of separation of church and state.
Well, yeah, let's deal with that. And in fact, I'd love if there's any priests out there or lawyers who are familiar with this privilege. I've never come across an issue in this regard myself that I've dealt with it directly, but I'm not sure that in and of itself it is unconstitutional. because there are other privileges that have been changed by law from time to time. For example, the spousal privilege, the husband and wife privilege. At one time, it was a privilege that the husband could assert and prevent the wife from testifying. Well, now they can't. It's up to the wife. And the idea was that they didn't want to do anything to undermine the marriage relationship by putting tension between husband and wife. That's been modified. It's a creature of statute. The doctor-patient privilege that also applies to most of these issues has been put in place by statute and has seldom been recognized under principles of constitutional law. But this is an incredible invasion of the privacy of every institution, and it passed almost unanimously out of the California legislature, and I'm going just a second here. I want to pull this up. There were mostly Republicans who voted against this measure, but not all that many. And Senator Patricia Bates, and I don't know where she is, what district she's in, Republican, she voted against it. Republicans that voted for it were Ling Chang. I don't know where.
She's the area kind of where Orange County, L.A. County, Riverside County, kind of in that venue.
So she voted
for that. She ran
for
Congress this past election.
No, actually, that was Young Kim. Ling Chang actually
Chang,
beat Josh Newman in the recall back in June last year when Newman got his clock clean.
Okay. And so Shannon Grove, very reliable. I think she's from Bakersfield. She voted against it. Brian Jones, San Joaquin Valley, voted against it. Now, our friend John Morlock, there's a question mark out there, and Mike Morrell, both question marks. We don't know how they voted. Senator Jeff Stone, I don't know who he is or where he's from, but he voted against it. Senator Scott Thomas Wilk voted for it. He's a Republican. So apparently all you have to do is to raise the specter of a child being abused, and it's a terrible thing. It's a terrible thing. But you do that, and it suspends all common sense. I don't know if any of you have any thoughts on it, but I'll tell you I do. This is just the beginning of the end, because once you do this, what's to stand in the way between the next privilege? What else is there that you have to report? Are we going to put monitoring devices in the booths? Are we going to start making doctors do this? It's making cops out of doctors. Accountants are already cops when it comes to tax issues, but how many more people are we going to do this to? How about psychiatrists? All right, they have some of their own reporting responsibilities, but how much are we going to get in there? There's just another invasion of privacy, a complete disrespect of everything. But when you said the church will fight it, well, you're darn right they will, and that's how I found it. I was not aware that this bill was working its way through the Senate, but at Mass this morning, they announced it at every parish. Which is what I would hope the good bishop would do about school choice. but
then we can sneak something out of the bishop's notes there. Like, oh, by the way, here's school choice 2020.org.
Oh, there'll come a time to talk to him about that. But this is an extremely serious issue that goes to the very heart of who we are and what we do. And I can tell that you two guys aren't Catholic because you're kind of yawning your way through the story. It's all right. But it was a burr under my saddle, and I was going to talk about it. And I was hoping to get some response from people on it. But I tell you, the government is out of control at every level, people. Now, if you would like to be part of the show, you can reach us at 866-870-5752. Now, let's move on to our favorite things school choice, and taxes. Remember, there's two organizations involved over there in Pasadena. One is the California Taxpayers Union, which is alive and well, and its latest project, which is School Choice 2020. All this relates to the future of California. All of it relates to the tax issues. And the fact is that this state is broke. It is insolvent. Our pension systems alone have made this entire state insolvent. And one of the biggest drivers of the insolvency in the state are the rising costs of so-called education in the state of California. Just Proposition 98 funds, those which are tailored and earmarked specifically for the public schools, those revenues are now up to over $80 billion per year. Total spending on schools here in the state of California is now north of $100 million, and billion. Yeah. I'm sorry, $100 billion, of course. And the average per pupil spending in the state of California is $17,200, and our schools continue to drop in performance like a stone, and that is by their own measures. Did I tell you the story? You talk about school standards. Hey, Jeff, how long do we have left in there? 3 minutes, you say? Okay, we're on to 3. I've got a little time. So a week ago, I went to a nice event at one of our supporters' house, Lisa. And
that was great, wasn't it?
It was. And she had a really nice person there, a number of them. And one of the young mothers was someone we're forced to call a Latina mother. She doesn't think of herself that way. I certainly don't. She'd been homeschooling her kids. And she talked about how when her children took some of the standardized tests because they're homeschool, these kids scored in something like the top 1 or 2%. Now, to hear the schools tell the tale, and she said this, not me, to hear the schools tell the tale, these kids are geniuses. She says, I think my kids are pretty smart, but they're not geniuses, right?
She was pretty honest about that.
She was.
Yeah, she's like,
she was.
My kids are bright, but they're not genius.
Not geniuses, right?
And they're scoring in the top, top in California.
That's right.
So that just shows you.
Our
schools are the pits.
Yeah, and the thing is that charter schools are doing better. My niece, Anastasia, went to charter school, and she is now a singer-songwriter, plays drums. She learned violin. She learned drums. She took some piano there. And her lyrics are brilliant. Their words, they're like, oh, my goodness, this is like Shakespearean type of thing. Because she actually got a good education through charter schools. She didn't go to the traditional public school route. And now she's touring Europe with her band. So, hey, I'm proud of my niece.
And how old is she now?
She's 21, and she is half Latino herself. So
there you go. Yeah, and so the point of it is that if our schools are 48th, if those national standards are such that a couple of kids who are reasonably diligent, supervised by their mama, doing their lessons daily, they're not studying 8, 10, 12 hours a day. They're just normal children putting in an average school day or less, scoring at 2%. You can imagine how low those standards are, to start with, and how low do you have to be defaulted in the 48th ranking. Amazing. Well, hey, that music you hear means that our first half hour is up. Man, did it go by. Mike Alexander, Josh Jacobs, and the redoubtable Jonathan Wilson here. We'll be back with you here in just a few moments with Radio Free Los Angeles. Back with you in a minute.
Southern California. This is Radio Free Los Angeles. Do you copy? Repeat, do you copy?
Now transmitting from behind the Iron Curtain in the People's Republic of California, we bring you the voice of free men, free markets, and limited constitutional government. Welcome to citizen-sponsored Radio Free Los Angeles. with President of the California Taxpayers Union, Mike Alexander, and editor of the Taxpayer Gazette, Jonathan Wilson.
All right, and thank you, Jeff, for calling the signals behind me here. We got one of the best board men in the business. Good to have Jeff. Brooke, are you awake in there? If you are, wave at me. Brooks is our. There she is. She's the screener. Does a fantastic job. And of course, I got Jonathan Wilson and Josh Jacobs with me here tonight. Radio Free Los Angeles. You want to be part of the show? We'd love to have you be part of the show. You can call us at 866-870-5752. Now, in the last half hour, we talked about a lot of things, but one of the things we talked about was the attempt of the California State Legislature to abolish the confidentiality of the confessional when it deals with priests and employees of the Archdiocese or other similar religious organizations. And I did get one brave caller who is dialed in, and that would be Carlos of Carson. Spoken with you before. How are you, Carlos? Welcome back.
Well, I'm doing real good, but unfortunately, there's so much bad news out there, particularly this measure that you just mentioned that the California government is trying to pass, and that is part of where the priests have to divulge whatever they hear in the confessional, and that is part really of a larger agenda. It's the same. It runs in consonance with the slogan, see something, say something, or kids ratting on their parents. So generally, it's people ratting on people and setting the stage really for a Big Brother type of police state, or a 1984 type of police state. And there's some very powerful people in the world want that kind of police state, and unfortunately, they have a lot of influence over a lot of our politicians.
Yeah, I don't think this is just the beginning here, and as applied, just to be accurate about this, the unique aspect of this, some people will find it okay. I don't, but the unique aspect of it is that they deal with disclosures made by priests or by other ministers within certain religious organizations and their employees or agents. So they're trying to make it narrow, to make it easier to vote for, but at the same time, they're making, in my judgment, an invidious discrimination among certain people. In other words, you lose your right to confidentiality merely because you're a priest confessing to another priest, or merely because you are an employee of an institution, a religious institution, to which the priest to whom you're confessing is also a member, belongs. This is nothing but mischief on four wheels here. It's going nowhere good, and it's just the beginning of trying to get behind all confidential communications and abolish privacy across the board. I mean, what's next? If you can get inside that confessional in that fashion, at gunpoint, then tell me what else is left out there. Where does this end? Does it end with your doctor? And by the way, why should it end with crimes that deal with the abuse of children? How about if a priest comes to know of the commission of a murder of an adult that has nothing? Why shouldn't we extend it to that? You see what I mean? Yeah, this is just the opening gambit for the people in power. I agree with you, Carlos. This is just part of of a policy of creating an informant state. This is exactly the kind of thing that they encourage in totalitarian governments, pitting one member of the community against the other, one family member against the other. I mean, Hitler and the Gestapo honed this to a fine-edged weapon and used it ruthlessly against people. And I see nothing good coming out of it. But maybe I'm the exception. Maybe you and I are the only ones who feel this way. I should say you and I, Bishop Gomez, and about 3,000 or 4,000 priests in the state of California and the employees. Oh, my goodness. It's wild. Well, Carlos, I want to thank you for calling in and weighing in. I really appreciate it. Talk about privacy. There was another big story here. And, I usually don't like the federal follies. I like to stay on school choice and fiscal issues. But sometimes there are other things that come up that remind me of larger issues. So now Carlos and I just got through talking about the sanctity of the confessional. And we've all talked about keeping government out of the bedroom. Well, this morning, many of you may have seen a headline on the Drudge Report, and one of the leading authors there was a big article on Martin Luther King and what it dealt with. And I'm taking this a place that many of you won't expect, perhaps, but. The leading author, Pulitzer Prize winning author of a biography of Martin Luther King. Trying to find the fellow's name here. He's very, very well known. His name is David Garrow, and he's taught everywhere, expert on civil rights movement, and he wrote a biography in 1986 and about Martin Luther King, and won the Pulitzer Prize for biography. Well, it comes about today in a British newspaper. I still haven't seen it in any American publications. It turned out that as he continued his investigations, research on this very important historical figure, he ran across a summary of some FBI tapes that apparently contained evidence of a number of things, of extensive surveillance of Martin Luther King. Apparently shows that he had relationships with at least 40 or 45 women other than his wife. I thought that was known. And that they apparently recorded a session with him and another male. I don't know what his status was, another preacher or whatever, and 2 or 3 women, and purports to have recorded an incident in which this second male raped a female who was in the room and reflected Martin Luther King's laughter and encouragement and so forth.
Wow.
All right, okay.
Is there any audio tape of that they released?
Yes. Now, okay, no. The audio tapes have been embargoed until 2027. So we won't. We've seen a summary. We won't see the tapes. Now the reason
pretty heavy stuff.
It's very heavy. But the reason that I mentioned this to you today is this. We, over the last couple of weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, heard Attorney General Barr testify about a lot of things. And his knickers were in a knot over what he called spying. And I don't know if many of you paid much attention to it, but along the way, he explained why he was upset about it. He said, I think his words were, I looked for him, I couldn't find him, something to the effect that I came of age at a time, I don't think he said the 70s, but 60s and 70s. I came of age at a time when there was a lot of concern about domestic spying. And this MOK tape situation reminds me of what had concerned us. And we know that J. Edgar Hoover and the FBI had monitored and taped and spied on and surveilled a lot of people in this country, not the least of whom was Martin Luther King. And Bobby Kennedy and Jack Kennedy did not like Martin Luther King. That's another story nobody wants to hear about the early divisions in the left. They thought that he was a troublesome fellow. I don't know. You can read the history on this point.
Well, I think a lot of folks thought he had communist ties.
Well, he certainly did.
I mean, a lot of those groups moved in the same circles and overlapped.
Oh, there's no question. And Martin Luther King
Nation
himself.
of Islam,
Martin Luther King definitely had communist connections. He had taken training and a number of things. I'm not saying he was a communist. I don't think he was. He was pursuing his own political agenda all along. And by the way, ended up making an immortal speech, one of the greatest examples of English that there ever was. We can't take that that away from him, but it reminds us how J. Edgar Hoover came to power in 1923. What was it? Anybody remember? The Red Menace, right? The Soviet Union had only been in business for around 5, 6, 7 years, and already they were exporting agents to the United States. So the Russian threat, the Red Menace, was the guise under which J. Edgar Hoover got into business and stayed in business. And in the early days of World War II, when the CIA, or the forerunners of it, wanted to get involved in domestic intelligence, the FBI said, nothing doing. You keep your backsides outside of the United States, and anything to do with counterintelligence in the United States we will deal with. And then that arrangement was hardwired with the National Intelligence Act of 1947, in which the CIA was forced to act offshore. But that didn't stop the FBI from becoming a domestic political player, and the deeds and misdeeds of the CIA and of the FBI led to a big political firestorm in the United States when it became clear what J. Edgar Hoover had done in relation to the Civil Rights Movement, when it became clear, you remember the church hearings, it became clear what the CIA had been doing internationally. We had a national hissy fit, and we put a clamp on that. Domestic spying used to be a really big deal. Mm-hmm. And now all of a sudden it isn't. But it was when we were, for Democrats, when we were spying on Martin Luther King. Well, it should still be a big issue with all of us.
Well, it is a big issue right now. I mean, look what's happening in regards to Jim Comey and the whole FISA issue, and that just got released this week.
It is, but
what's going to happen?
Yeah, but now that this activity has been discovered, and believe me, it's been known at the highest levels, including these committees, right from the very beginning, but they went for it anyway. So this is just a little walk down memory lane for those of us who are alive and aware back in the day. So just remember, we're not, those of us who are concerned about civil liberties are not latecomers. This systematic political surveillance of Martin Luther King had no other purpose other than to frustrate that. Oh, yeah, we were hunting Russians, don't you know? We've been hunting Russians for 100 years every time. I'm no Russian lover, but we've been hunting Russians for 100 years and using it to justify political spying anytime we wanted to. Enough already. Hey, I got my old friend Brent. He wants to talk about the confession. How are you tonight, Brent?
Hi, Mike. Hi, John.
Hey, Brent. What's happening?
Oh,
say hello to Josh. He's neglected.
And Josh. Hi, Josh.
Hey, Brent. How's it going?
Okay. He needs a friend, Brent. Okay, you got a friend now.
You know what? We need to get Brent in the studio one of these Sundays. Wouldn't that be fun?
Oh man,
that'd be great.
I know. Hey, I still like to have a microphone when I'm done, man. This guy will take it over. Hey, Brent, fire away, my friend.
Yeah, no, I'm just was horrified for you bringing up this topic of the jackboot of California kicking down the doors of the priest confessional.
Mm-hmm.
This bizarre insanity, this is coming from a Jew.
Hey, it applies to rabbis too.
Well,
it won't just say Catholics. It'll be a priest or minister. I haven't seen the language, but I can promise you that it's going to apply to anybody who's in the religion business.
Well, not only in the religion business, in any business.
Yes.
This is just an ongoing tyrannical, withdrawing of rights. It goes on with the patient-doctor relationship, the attorney-client privilege, therapists. It'll be with parents and children.
Right.
And this is coming from the people who I think are these the guys who pretend to care something about children, the ones who just love child sacrifice and the ones that want to teach, sexual perversion to kids in the school.
Right.
Are those the ones that are trying to protect all of a sudden children in the priesthood?
Right, exactly. And the ones who support the unrestricted slaughter of the unborn in the womb. And I presume that's what you were referring to.
Yes. It's all a total out-and-out con, and it's a deception, and it's a sidestepping. Everything. So this represents everything bad and tyrannical and Hitlerian. I mean, it is just surreal.
Yeah.
And this comes on. If I just have another second, bringing up Memorial Day, we are on the. This is something that also it seems we've overlooked, and something so momentous. This is a time where we need to be sanctifying our soldiers, and also, when we talk about a Memorial Day, what exactly are we memorializing?
Mm-hmm.
Is it simply dead soldiers, or does it have something to do with the purpose of their dying, their values, their beliefs, their nobility, their valor, their honor, their connection to liberty, justice, goodness, truth, and God Himself? And it's, I'm driving around my neighborhood, and I'm trying to see how many people have American flags up.
Mm-hmm.
And in my neighborhood, about 300. The neighborhood's called Brookside.
Mm-hmm.
There are only about 5 other neighbors who had a flag up.
Yeah.
So 6 flags out of 300, and I think that represents Los Angeles and California.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And then we just stop to compare that to the frenzied activity when the Lakers are in the finals or the Rams are in the Super Bowl. You see cars driving around literally with flags on the street flapping away. But patriotism is held in low esteem, and these traditions are upheld throughout our institutions. And one of the most important institutions is the schools. Well, enough said to say that. Where would the patriotism be learned in colleges, our community colleges, and now the American flag in various even suburban schools has been designated. What do they call it? Not hate speech, but somehow it's a symbol. They had some kids show up at some school here several years back with the American flag on Cinco de Mayo, right?
Mm-hmm.
And got sent home because he was wearing the flag. The Mexican flag was all over Hell's Half Acre, but this kid shows up with an American flag, and it was deemed to be, threatening or something like that. Remember that? So we've demonized the flag. We've demonized the church. We've demonized everybody, and and we forget on the same day. In fact, it's really good that you brought that up, Brent, because on the same weekend, tomorrow being Memorial Day, the same weekend that we're doing that, in the roll-up to it, we make a direct attack on, let's call them the chaplains, right?
Yes.
And yet in every war, we've had preachers and priests and rabbis, ministers, go into combat and on military duty with our fighting men and women.
And that's because we're not, our military and our country, this isn't a place of barbarians. We don't send soldiers as the Roman Empire or the Russian Empire or the German Empire or whatever. Our soldiers represent God. And I think we've forgotten exactly who the American soldiers is and what America is. And I would just ask the question, where in Los Angeles does the light of godliness and truth most prominently shine forth? Does it come from City Hall or UCLA or from the Veterans Cemetery on Westwood Boulevard in Westwood?
That's right. And it's iconic. I think that probably that Westwood Cemetery there shows up maybe even more often than Arlington. It's just such a beautiful place, and of course, we're the center of the motion picture and television industry here. So if you need a prop, you can always go over there and get the perfect prop. So you want a real live cemetery that visually expresses the concept of duty and devotion and veneration of the fallen. That Westwood Cemetery is just beautiful.
Yes.
It's extraordinary.
And there's a nobility and there's a spirituality that if we want to look to where greatness is, it's lying in a lot of these graves.
It is.
And half a mile away at the university that hates this country and hates our God, it's got to be turned around.
It does. And I mean, right now, today, there are young men, yes, I suppose I'm supposed to say women. There's a few here and there. Thank you, ladies. But overwhelmingly, it's young men who go in harm's way and end up getting killed. And somebody this weekend on active duty or training or in combat will lose his life. Or be maimed and go home and maybe live with these injuries for the rest of his life. And then we have families who have to bear that burden with them. And, of course, it's the families that bear the loss of death, and it never, ever goes away for those families. And so on Memorial Day, among the things that we should be remembering is not just the sacrifice that the soldiers made, but the continuing sacrifice and loss borne by the wives, the parents, the children of those who gave their lives. And for the wives and the parents and the children who are helping to care for severely injured and disabled young men and occasionally women who come home from these events terribly broken.
Yeah.
And the so many soldiers, Marines, people who end up in combat, whatever their service was, who can't leave the demons behind, even though their bodies were left intact, their minds and souls are rent asunder.
Yeah.
And they can never get past what they saw. They're back in that loop. So hard. But as I recall, you did a lot of counseling over the years, and no doubt, you've encountered this personally.
Yeah.
As a veteran, I've talked with many of my fellow veterans. I'm not a combat veteran, but I've talked with many guys over the years who had these experiences, and they never get past them, or they might internalize it. Then all of a sudden, one day, it erupts.
Yes, and God will bless them, but we need to bless them too.
Oh, we do.
We have to keep teaching and telling our children who are being brainwashed by the darkness of those that just will.
And remember that they didn't go off, or you called them soldiers of God. That is, they fought for the right thing in the right way. And that's what we have to remember as much as anything, is why they made the sacrifice.
Yes.
What was there about America, about the American ideal, that compelled them to put on the uniform and take up arms for our country in support of what ideas?
Yeah.
Well, Brent, that music that you hear means that we're end of the second half hour. It's so good to talk to you again. God bless. And in the next half hour, we'll continue our discussions. I'm going to try to get that interview with John Capal in. If not tonight, we'll do it next Sunday night. But for right now, this is Mike Alexander, Josh Jacobs, and Jonathan Wilson signing off for this hour. We will be back with you for the second half hour at 866-870-5752.
Come in, Southern California. This is Radio Free Los Angeles. Do you copy? Repeat, do you copy?
Now transmitting from behind the Iron Curtain in the People's Republic of California, we bring you the voice of free men, free markets, and limited constitutional government. Welcome to citizen-sponsored Radio Free Los Angeles with President of the California Taxpayers Union, Mike Alexander, and editor of the Taxpayer Gazette, Jonathan Wilson.
All right, you betcha I'm hot. All right, Mike Alexander, Jonathan Wilson, Josh Jacobs back with you, Radio Free Los Angeles. And if you'd like to be part of the program here, you can call us at 860-870-5752. And remember, this is listener, citizen-sponsored radio. What do they do if they want to give us some love, Jonathan?
Go to our website, schoolchoice2020.org, or you can go to radiofreelosangeles.net, either one, and just click the contribute button.
And we also have our Twitter page, which is twitter.com/2020choice. Let me give that again. Twitter.com/2020choice. Follow us there, where we update all the time with new headlines that have to do with school choice.
Excellent.
And what California and the LAUSD and other districts are doing to squash our kids' education. 2020 choice is what we need so badly.
That's it, man. And he is our Twitter master.
He is. By the way, I just came across something. This doesn't have anything to do with school choice, but you might have heard this story.
Yeah.
Seattle City Council members want speed bumps to combat drive-by shootings.
No, come on.
I would think that is of something from The Onion.
Yeah, or the Babylon Bee.
Babylon Bee, but it's true.
Oh, you're kidding.
And so one of my friends on Facebook just posted it. And Hugh Hemington, who's a friend of ours, commented. He said, you know Hugh's sense of humor.
I do, yes.
He said, this would make it safer for would-be victims near speed bumps, since the car would be bouncing up and down, making the shooter less accurate.
It's unbelievable.
That's for real.
Is this like the California Screaming roller coaster that's like up, down, up, down, up, down type of a thing?
It's liberals are just absolutely nuts, right? Or the freaking minds.
I can't believe that.
And why do we give them any power at all, people? Yeah,
because they run as moderates. That's why.
The whole thing, all of government, every damn bit of it is a fraud, a hustle, and a con. Yeah, and these idiots.
Well, with these speed bumps, Hugh also says, on the other hand, cars going slower can deliver more rounds, so it's probably a wash.
All right. Well, Hemington, I'm glad you worked it out, Hugh. All right. Somebody on our team's thinking.
You'll shoot your eye out, kid.
Oh, man, I'll tell you what. Yeah, or just settle for an automatic weapon, spray and pray. Oh, man, I'll tell you what. So we're going to get into to our tax issues here, which I've been neglecting. Now, don't forget out there, everybody, school choice is not just a good thing for us to be doing as conservatives or even as liberals, believe me. It's not just the best thing that we should be doing. Politically, it is the only thing that we should be doing in the next 18 months. Yes, I know Donald Trump is going to be on the ballot in 2020. Fine, we're here in California. I don't know what's going to happen for all that, but by all means, vote for Don. There's no question about that. But more than anything else, get out there and work for school choice, because this actually has the chance of changing the landscape here in the state of California and giving all students, no matter where they came from, no matter where they worship, no matter what floats their boat, it's going to give them the ability to acquire a quality education, which they currently cannot acquire in our public schools, not because we don't give them enough money. Lord knows they've had more than enough money, but because we give them the ability to choose a school that'll get the job done for them. And so our proposal for school choice, which is an adaptation of the Morlock bill, will provide as follows. Following the adoption of the Educational Freedom Act, or whatever we decide to call it eventually, the School Choice Bill, in November of 2020, the state of California will establish for each school-aged child, K through 12, a savings account, an educational savings account. Into that account, number 2, will annually be deposited at whatever intervals are appropriate, an amount equal to the average per pupil spending based upon Proposition 98. Sounds a little convoluted, but all you have to do is remember that amount of money is a little over $15,000 per year. Number 3, the parents can take that $15,000 scholarship, credit, whatever you want to call it, and they can spend it at a school of their own choice. That could be a public school, their current public school. Yes, if you like your public school, you can keep your public school.
Nobody's going to take that away from you.
Yeah, exactly. You didn't do that. You didn't build that. You're right. I'm not responsible, Brock. You can spend it at your local public school. You can spend it at a private school. You can spend it at a charter school. Or, yes, grab your comfort dogs and aromatherapy treatments there, a parochial school. And number 4, whatever you have left over at the end of 12 years, you can spend it on college, or during that period of time, you can spend it on other qualified, approved educational expenses. Now, what is not to like about that? You have to be either brain dead or a member of a school teachers union to oppose that kind of thing.
That's what I was going to say, Mike. It might not be good for the unions.
No, it won't be good for. Well, I tell you what, they're going to feel better about themselves.
You think they'll be able to sleep better at night?
They will, and
knowing that they're actually doing something for kids.
Well, yes, because we're going to help them improve as teachers and as human beings.
We're going to make them better people.
We are going to increase their self-esteem.
That's right.
And nothing is more important than self-esteem.
Yeah.
Right? Not even money.
I feel great about that.
I'm
just getting goosebumps.
You don't need money to feel good about yourself, right? I mean, that's what we need to teach these unions.
Yeah.
That's right. Yes, so now we're going to show them the path to salvation. We're going to make those public school better. And I tell you, for all those people who tell me, Mike, you and those clowns over there at School Choice 2020, you're going to ruin the public schools in this state.
They're already ruined.
That's right.
That's what you say.
You say right.
How can we ruin them anymore?
I didn't do that. You did it.
Yeah.
Right?
We didn't do it. You did it yourself.
You did that, right? You built that, right? You screwed it up. But we are, even though we didn't break the public schools, we are going to make them better. And I guarantee, and I can tell you the day and the hour when those public schools will get better. And that'll be about 10 o'clock on the first day, on the first Tuesday of November in 2020. About 10 p.m., those schools will get better because that's when school choice will pass in California. And those public schools will immediately improve because they're going to have to get better in order to retain their current clientele. Because remember, you boys and girls are the high-cost, low-quality providers. So you got lots of work to do out there, and your self-esteem is going to go sky high as you work to restore in yourself a sense of appreciation of America, the appreciation of the customer. You're going to have a newfound respect for that young mother of 2 or 3 there who barely speaks English, but she controls her 3-4 kids, represent $45,000 to $60,000 per year. Now, do you think Lupita, who no hablas, you think she's going to get more respect than she's getting right now? You betcha she is.
And she knows more about what's best for her kids' education, much better than some faceless, useless bureaucrat does.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I put my full confidence in those parents, legal, illegal, or otherwise. They couldn't do worse, number one. And number 2, they will likely do better. Why? Because they're the parents. And I refuse to look down on those parents and believe for a moment that Lupita and Carlos, who are illegal here, whatever, how they got here is none of my business. I got to deal with the educational problem right now of changing the future and paving the way for real assimilation into our society. But Lupita and Carlos, I know, are going to want to do a good job for their kid. And if you came up here from nowhere, what does that mean? Well, you're going to want your children to learn the language, number one. You're going to want them to be able to read in English impeccably, and hopefully they will retain a love and obtain a mastery of their own language, Spanish, and learn how to speak in that language and how to write in that language. All of us should know both of those languages if we're capable of doing so. They will want their children to master basic arithmetic and mathematics. They will want them to learn how to read as well as they can, to comprehend. Then they're going to want their children to have an opportunity maybe to go on to college, but as much as anything else, many of those kids are going to want to acquire a trade of some sort. So that's why this educational funding can be applied to a vocational school. So, yeah, maybe you're a young guy and you grew up in a family of mechanics, and frankly, college has no attraction to you. You just say, man, I'd like to take this money and I'd like to go to a Mr. Goodwrench style of school or learn how to repair. And those guys make good money.
It is. In fact, welders are looking for welders right now, and they're going to pay them good money because there's a shortage of welders. There's a shortage of electricians, shortage of construction people, shortage of mechanics, all these people who have these vocational jobs that don't require college education and make good money. There's a shortage of them right now. Manufacturing jobs, there's a shortage of employees there as well, which is great news to hear.
Yes.
And the thing is that college is not for everybody. I even had an SAT guy from UCLA. This guy gave doctorate courses. His name was Dr. Herzog. He said college is not for everybody.
Right.
It's just not for everybody.
It isn't. And right now, I think, in fact, this was a stat that I was looking for, but I think only about 1/3 of all high school graduates go on to college in any event. And we probably don't need any more than that. What we do need is youngsters who have mastered their basic civics, reading, arithmetic, and everything else. I have no doubt that when I finished high school, especially the high school that I attended, that if that had been all that I had, it would have stood me in good stead and permitted me to read everything that I had not yet read and everything that I needed to read as an adult and as a citizen. Our high schools used to provide that kind of preparation for citizenship and for participation in our economy. But as we've turned over our society to elitists, as we have turned them over to politicians, to social engineers, and sob sisters at every level, we have distorted our entire economy. Why? For what purpose? Well, just to employ more bureaucrats who don't get paid based upon results. Yeah, and that's it. As soon as government bureaucrats, like everybody else, gets paid for results, they will start producing results. It's very basic. Private schools can't stay in business if they don't produce results. That's why I say there is no such thing as a nonprofit entity. A profitable entity is one that has money left over after expenses. If you're truly nonprofit and you went negative, then you stop existing. You don't continue. So any organization that continues in operation is by definition profitable or subsidized by you and me. Either one. So all these institutions, as soon as we stop meeting people's needs, we go out of business. Now, it's true of a church. It's true of a school. It's true of a pet cemetery. Doesn't make any difference. The only places where you keep getting paid money, even when you fail the worst, is the public so-called school system. And government in general, and it's no accident that they're the ones who do it. So you need to go out, ladies and gentlemen, and when you go on there, now Jonathan just told you where to go: schoolchoice2020.org or radiofreelosangeles.net. Now you got to sign up there and give me some love. Why? Don't tell me that you support school choice.
We love you, Mike.
Yeah. If you don't support school choice. Because you and I know that to put that thing on the ballot, to get all the signatures that we get that you and I can't provide ourselves with volunteers, that is going to take anywhere from $3 to $5 million. Now, I can stay on this radio for the next 10 years and not raise $3 to $5 million over the radio. But there is that money out there, and what do we need to do? When Jonathan, I, and Josh and the rest of our School Choice 2020 team, and they're a fabulous team. And hey, let me take a second and give a shout out to Denise and to Steve and
Andrew
and Andrew. And Josh, who's there,
and Ed
Jonathan,
and Judy,
and Eric,
Ed and Judy, and Eric, and who else do we've
got Janice and Doug, and Dale, Dr. Well, I'm not going to use last names.
Yeah, don't use last names.
Dr. Dale.
Yeah, Dr. Dale. We've got great people from all over coming in. We got some reverends out there.
Lawyer out there in Redlands.
In Redlands, also has a program. There's a guy I won't mind being identified, Greg Britton.
He's Victoria.
Victoria.
Yeah.
And, we just
didn't talk about our delegate
Jenny,
breakfast, by the way, which went very well.
It did.
Yeah.
And you weren't here last week.
Did you talk about it last week?
We talked about it a little bit, but it was a fabulous event.
Yeah.
And don't forget, we have our drafting convention coming up a week from today. And if you go to schoolchoice2020.org, it has the details. What time do we begin? 1:30 p.m.?
1 o'clock.
1 o'clock p.m.,
yeah.
1,300 hours.
Yeah, it's going to be at the Verdugo Hills Hospital.
Yes.
Go on. If you'd like to join us for this very important event,
yes,
go onto our website, and under the Events tab, you'll see Drafting Convention.
Yes.
And it's free of charge. We're going to have snacks and refreshments and some coffee. So
excellent. That's what
it's
we
going to
need.
be a great afternoon.
Hey, fantastic.
And join us. We're going to have some great people there.
And that $5, $10, or $20 a month will permit me, Jonathan, and the rest of our team to go to the people who do have the money and prove that you're committed. That's when we'll get it. Before we get them to commit, we have to show that we're committed.
And by the way, I'm full-time at School Choice.
Yes.
So, a $5 a month contribution helps me buy my groceries.
It keeps him in soda water.
Hey, I'm just keeping it real here.
Hey, keeping it real. Hey, speaking of keeping it real, it is that special time of the week. It is time for our Government Grifter of the Week award. Music, maestro, please.
And now it's time for our weekly Government Grifter Award with Juan Tierra.
Hey, Juan, are you there with us tonight?
Absolutely. Good evening.
Or
Mike,
should I
Josh.
say, ¿Cómo estás?
Hola. To you.
Hola, ¿qué tal? All right.
Good evening, Mike, Josh, and John. Looks like we have a triumvirate.
Bonjour.
Yeah, look at this.
The
It's a party in here tonight.
That's it.
Okay.
What do you have?
Now, since the LAUSD election is fast approaching, we're going to keep the spotlight on
Yes.
bloated bureaucracy at 220 downtown, which never has enough taxpayer money. As I pointed out last week, there are 110,000 employees, average $100,000 in salary, and the health care costs about $17,000 each a year.
Say that again.
110,000 employees, average salary $100,000, health care costs average $17,000 a year.
Wow.
That's the LA Times. That's the source of the LA Times, by the way.
Right.
Now, we use our usual source, transparentcalifornia.com. Anybody can do it. Just look it up. It's scary.
Mm-hmm.
Last year we have data, 2017. Your humble researcher took a look at the 30 most highly compensated LAUSD employees. Number one, coming in at number 9, with a job title of teacher. That's it.
Teacher.
Pay and benefits, $282,000.
Wow.
Jeez.
That's a pretty well-paid
All
teacher.
those poor teachers.
Number 2,
Yeah.
the 10th highest compensated employee, with a job title of police detective. Pay and benefits, $269,000.
Wow.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, no, I was surprised. I found this out not too long ago that the LAUSD has their own police force.
Police force, that's right.
amazing.
That's true,
But
yeah.
bear in mind, is to keep the kids in, not out.
Right.
They're trying to get the hell out of jail. Okay, go ahead.
They even have a police. Third nominee at number 27, with job title police sergeant, $246,000. Note, The chief of police of LAUSD at number 13 gets only $263, $6,000 less than a certain detective. Does that make any sense?
Okay, seniority one-time pays too damn much money. Okay, anybody else?
No, that's three.
All right.
The teacher, a police detective, and a police sergeant.
All right. So who's picking the winner? Are you picking the winner?
I think he's going to pick the winner.
All right, he's going to.
Wait. I have a very special thing here.
Yes.
Now, before I do this, I'm pointing out that the highest paid district superintendent gets $6,000 less than the teacher. Does that make any sense?
No, it makes no sense.
So the winner probably gave away, but drum roll, please.
All right, drum roll.
You there, Jeff? Oh, yeah, there he goes.
And the winner of this week's Government Grifter Awards is...
the plain old teacher at $282,000 a year.
Oh, yeah. You poor, underpaid, overworked, overfed, worthless so-called teacher. We want you to call us because we want to know what the hell you do for that kind of money.
By the way, we don't feel that way about all teachers.
Not all of them.
No. A lot of these teachers do a really good job.
Oh, they do.
But to quote Jackie Gleason in The Toy about her, sound like she's getting paid good money.
It does.
Hey, I want to give a hand to Juan.
Yeah.
Juan, you do a great job.
Thank you so much for being...
By the way, full disclosure on Jackie Goldberg.
Yeah.
We were at Berkeley together.
You dated Jackie Goldberg?
No. At the same...
you're starting rumors.
In the mid-'60s, she was head of the big mover in the Marxist organization known as Slate, to the left of Lenin.
Oh, okay. Well, she's been left of that, and I think Jackie likes women. But anyway, are we up or down or still on? Are we off?
I'm done.
Oh, okay. All right. We've got, did you say 3 minutes? No, we're 1:30. All right. Thank you. Well, thank you, Juan Tierra, for that stimulating choice there. Another reason to vote no on Measure EE. They don't need any more money. They need to manage what they got. They need to trim staff. They need to do better. Or better yet, let's just give up trying to manage these people. Just take the money, divide it up among the families that are out there, and let families go find their own schools, make the arrangements. Don't forget, no on Measure EE. Call your kids, tell your wife, tell your friends if you've got any left to go out there and vote no on Measure EE if you're in LAUSD, and go to schoolchoice2020.org. Give us some love. Help us to send the message.
And join us next Sunday at the drafting convention.
We would.
It's going to be it's going to be a great event.
Yeah.
And we're going to be unveiling the latest draft.
That's it.
Before we submit it to the Attorney General.
That music means we're gone. We'll see you next week.
And happy Memorial Day, everybody.
Yes. Yeah. Say a prayer for all of the fallen and their families. Bye-bye now.